It's an exclusive in the government's controversial Northern Ireland Legacy Bill, just one step away from becoming law.
So the legislation offers a conditional amnesty to those accused of killings during the 30 years of violence over British rule in Northern Ireland, and it will stop any new court cases and inquests being held.
Despite widespread opposition, the bill passed after a final debate in the House of Lords. Campaigners for victims, though, say the government has abandoned them.
But a former special branch officer who shot dead an IRA terrorist in 1991 argues his life's been ruined by the continuing and relentless inquiries that have never found him guilty of murder.
Well, he has spoken exclusively to us here on GB News. He represents one side of this argument. The victims, though, they have another tale to tell. Our Northern Ireland reporter Dougie Beattie with this.
My name's Officer B. I joined the Royal Ulster Constabulary in the late 70s, and I served in various stations around the border in West Belfast before joining what was called E4A, which was a surveillance unit. It was part of Special Branch, now Special Operations Branch. So I was a covert surveillance operator for almost 11 years. I was going out to do an operation, a counter-terrorism operation against a man called Colin Marks. I wasn't privy to the full amount of intelligence or who the source was. That wasn't for us. That was way above our pay scale. But the information was, which came from a source within the IRA, that he was going to come to the playing field to the rear of St Patrick's Avenue that night, carrying a Mark 12 mortar, and then fire it into a armoured police or army Land Rover, which was passing by. Colin Marks brought this mortar to the driveway house on St Patrick's Avenue, where he set it up to fire it against a security force vehicle. So total and utter disregard for human life. And so that's what I was facing that night when I took up a position in a hedgerow on St Patrick's Avenue to cover a playing field. Whenever the HMSU came to arrest him, and he bolted out through the hedge and into the field towards me. The Republicans have often said, oh, well, he wasn't armed. He was armed. He was armed with a Mark 12 mortar. Yes, he didn't have him on him that stage, but most times when terrorists were doing things like that, they carried additional firearms on them. And when you are involved in a shooting, you don't even have a second to make a decision. He kept running towards me. I dropped the back of the weapon down, so it meant that the rounds would go over the top of his head. I fired 2 warning shots, and he just kept coming, and he was closing the distance. And I fired 5 further rounds, 3 of which hit him. 1 hit him in the hand, 1 hit him in the side of the ear, and exited the back of his neck, but actually never penetrated his skull. And the fatal round went through his abdomen. I went through 4 investigations. First of all, a CID investigation. Then that file was passed with no recommendation of conviction to the DPP, the public prosecution. They found that there was no case, agreed with the police. Then I was interviewed by what was called complaints and discipline, which is like Pony, the ombudsman nowadays. They found no wrongdoing in what I did that night. Then the inquest, so it was justifiable killing that night. So roll on 25 years. The police ombudsman in Northern Ireland then decided that they were going to investigate, even though it was exactly the same that was said 25 years ago. And most of my anger is against the police ombudsman, because for 7 years and 1 month, until the PPS said there was no case, I've been under this cloud for 7 years and 1 month, and it's not pleasant. I live in fear for my life, because during that period of time, police ombudsman informed me and the police that all my details had been given to the solicitor practice who's representing the family. A dossier of information. They had my picture, They had my name, they had my mobile phone number, they had my address, they had my company name and where I worked. So I've gone through all my details being leaked to a solicitor's practice. And within that solicitor's practice, individual keeps referring to me as a murderer. He did it recently on a news programme or a media programme. He also, in the bio for the website for himself, he refers to the RUC murder of Colin Marks in April 1991. Now, that's completely contrary to what the PPS decided, because the PPS decided in May of this year that there was no fresh evidence. But then immediately afterwards, the solicitor's practice working for the family are challenging the PPS's decision. So is it a case of they'll not be happy till they get what they want, or do they want truth? In April of this year, that was 7 years into investigation, reinvestigation of me. It's now into September, and I'm now facing my 6th investigation. If that's not vindictive or vexatious, I don't understand. But I can tell you now, and I look at you in the eyes and say, I did not go out that night to kill anybody.
Well, that anonymous police officer telling his story and the impact the Northern Ireland Legacy Bill will have on someone like him, which he will welcome. The IRA man involved in the shooting, killed in the shooting, his family will have other views on this. But let's not forget people who have been victims of military violence as well. This is not a popular piece of legislation in Northern Ireland. So people who have been killed by the armed forces, people who have been killed by loyalists, people who have been killed by Republicans. All of this will come to an end without any resolution for these families. So why was this bill introduced, the Northern Ireland Legacy Bill?